This is the inside of the 2021 Auto Sleeper Fairford. If I firstly come to the main control panel, you can see just here that it's giving us the external temperature. This little picture that looks a bit like a sun will appear whenever the solar panel is active. Beside that, we have a little lightning strike just indicating that we're currently connected to mains electricity. We have the humidity just there, and over here on the right hand side the internal temperature. To turn the 12 volt on, just press here. Beneath that we then have water pump on and off. We need the water pump on so we can get water out the taps, flush the toilet and fill the boiler if it's been drained down. We then have water levels just here, so how much water is in the fresh tank and how much water is in the waste tank. And then beneath that we have power levels, so we have condition of leisure battery, condition of vehicle battery, how many amps are either coming in or going out on the active battery, the mains current and the solar current just there. Over on this right hand side we have the main isolator for the onboard lights. These can all be individually turned on and off on their own switches, and if they are these touch ones, once they've gone off they will need to be touched again to come back on. Awning light just here, and then battery selection just here, so V for vehicle, L for leisure. Whichever battery is highlighted on here is the battery you are using to run the back end of the motorhome, and when you're connected to main supply that is also the battery you are charging. If I now press the picture of the cog, we will go into the menu, and this first part here is for power settings, so you'll see that charging is all set to smart, so whilst connected to main supply the batteries will just swap over after a few hours, and then the leisure battery will take over on the battery that's not being charged by the mains. You can take it out of smart if you wish and just literally pick what battery you would like to be either the active battery or the battery being charged by the solar panel. Automatic tank fill just here. This needs to be on if you are using the whale filler to fill up the motorhome. We then have tank heaters just here for the fresh and the waste tanks. At the moment now they're turned on but not actually active at the moment. They have to be activated like this, then there has to be water in the tanks and the external temperature has to drop below about 3 or 4 degrees. Lights that come on when you turn the control panel on, you'll see they're all set to off at the moment. This just literally just comes down to personal preference. Key beeps on and off, water level alarms for the fresh and the waste tanks on or off, how bright the backlight is of this screen and how quickly it times out when you're not using it. Set the time and date. Within this part here we can set timers etc for the heating and hot water system, and then we end up back at the beginning again. If I now just move across to the whale control panel, you'll see that we have 2 buttons just here, one for the water heater and one for the heating. So if I start with the water heater, if I begin to press it, you'll see it goes over a series of icons until it eventually ends back at off. If we start with the first icon, this is the boiler's frost protection mode, so it will just put in a small amount of heat to avoid the boiler freezing up in cold climate. We then have a single wavy line. Wavy lines represent mains electricity, and I always round this up. I class this as main supply using about 1 kilowatt. Then we have main supply using about 2 kilowatts, so these two settings just dependent on the ampage of the site you're on to try and avoid tripping. We then have gas on its own if we're not connected to main supply, and after that we then have dual fuel, So a mixture of both main supply and gas at 1 kilowatt, and a mixture of main supply at 2 kilowatts and gas. Whenever the unit is consuming gas, a little flame will appear here to let you know. And if there's a problem in any shape or form with the boiler, a red exclamation mark will appear where my finger is. If this appears, just hold down the button just here and you'll get a series of little red lights appear. And then within the manual, or if you Google it, it will tell you what the problem is. If it's something relatively easy that can be rectified, you need to reset the control panel. And the way to reset the water heating is just by holding this button in first and then pressing the plus button at the same time. If you are not connected to main supply, when you use this, none of the mains settings will actually appear. You will only be able to run it on gas. Beneath that we then have the heating, and it looks very similar to the water heater. So again, series of icons until we eventually end back off. So we have a single wavy line. This time this represents about 500 watts. Then we have 2 wavy lines about 1 kilowatt. And then 3 wavy lines about 2 kilowatts. So again, just dependent on the amperage of the site you're on. We then have gas on its own. And then dual fuel. Control the temperature on the plus and the minus just here. And I'll recommend dropping all the way down to this little moon if you need to use the heating whilst you're asleep. It will roughly keep the temperature to about 16 degrees, which is comfortable for sleeping, and also the fan will be very quiet. Again, whenever the heating's running, consuming gas, you'll get a little picture of a flame. It will not work at the moment as we are at 29 degrees inside, so the thermostat will not allow it to come on. And again, if there's a problem, red exclamation mark will appear. Hold the button down, you'll get a series of red lights. Checking the manual. Again, relatively easy to fix. Just hold the button in and press the plus to reset it. If I now just come down to the travel seats and just remove the cushions. You will see tucked down here is the leisure battery. Also down here is the main 12 volt fuse for the leisure battery just there. We also have the solenoid there that just allows the water in for the whale filler. And just at this point here we have the pressure switch. So if you are finding that the pump is massively overrunning, once you close your taps you can just slightly adjust it. Never twist this a lot or otherwise you will throw it massively out of sync. We then have, if I just lift this up, some 12 volt fuses just here. These fuses are labelled up and are mainly for components on the outside of the motorhome. So if any of them are not working, just check to see if you've blown a fuse just here. And if I now flap this section down just here, we have the consumer unit. So we have the mains trip switches just here. So you'll see we have the 3 grey individual MCBs, then the main RCD and the test button just in the corner there. They are labelled up and will then correspond in the auto sleeper handbook. So if anything's not working on main supply, just check to see if you've basically tripped. And then on this side here we have the 12 volt fuses. Again, they are labelled up and will correspond in the handbook. If a 12 volt fuse blows, you will get a red light underneath it indicating that it has blown. So again, if something's not working on 12 volt, just check to see if you've blown a fuse here. Isolator switches just here for components that use mains supply. So we have this amber one here for the heating and hot water system. If you turn this off, you will definitely get a red exclamation mark on the control panel if you're trying to run it on main supply. so this is just best left alone. It's more for maintenance than anything else. We have the green one here for the battery charger. Again, if we turn this off, we will not be able to charge either the vehicle battery or the leisure battery from the main supply, so again it can just be left alone. This one here will illuminate if you have reverse polarity connected to the van. This can sometimes be found on continental sites. And then over here we have this black button, which is full system shutdown. So if you're not using the motorhome for long periods of time, you can press this and it will kill any residual draw on the leisure battery. Underneath this seat here, we just have storage. Currently just holding some of the cushions for the bed. Storage just here, and we also have the table poles just there. The table pole tops are just located behind the bench seat cushions, and then they just drop in to these points just here. TV and satellite points just here, 12 volt plug-in point here, and then 2 main sockets. In the overhead locker just here we have the Huawei mobile Wi-Fi unit. Turns on and off just here. You do need to add the SIM card that is in the Auto Sleeper handbook. Once you've done this, and basically it inserts in the back here, so you just take the back cover off, remove the battery, and then pop the SIM card in. Once this is done, turn the unit back on, then use your smart device, just turn it on, search for the Huawei Wi-Fi, connect up to it, and then pay the subscription. Microwave just here. The isolator switch for it is just here. This will work when the motorhome's connected to mains electricity. This particular model does not require a microwave plate. We have the normal quick start just here, and stop, power settings, express cook, so usually you have, yep, let me have a look, yep, so it will just literally do 30 seconds a minute 30. We then have cook, so you have your different cook auto settings just there, and then within the manual it will tell you what each one will do. Defrost, set the clock, etc., all just there. Directly underneath it is the Dometic Extractor Fan. Lights on and off just here, and there's 2 different levels, and then we have 2 fan speeds just here. Gas rings here. To light these, just push in, twist and press the igniter. And then directly beneath it is the oven and the grill. So push in to the left for the oven, and then push in to the right for the grill. Gas isolation taps just beneath it, so we have the oven and hob at the top, fridge just there, and then heating just there. They're all in the on position, and quite frankly they can stay like that. I always say if you do smell gas in the van, go underneath it and isolate the tank itself. Fairford fridge just here, so on and off just on the square here. This is an automatic model, so as long as it's on A for auto, it will find the best power source it can for you. So because we're currently hooked up to main supply, it's put us onto mains with a little picture of the 2-pin plug. If I was now to run outside and pull the mains lead out, it would then automatically attempt to fire itself up onto gas, and then as soon as I start the engine of the motorhome, it will then go over to 12-volt maintain to keep the fridge cold whilst on the move. As you can see, the screen will disappear after a few seconds. Just tap the square to bring it back up again. It can be taken out of auto just by holding the square in, and you'll see it now begins to flash. Use the arrow keys to then pick. So I could manually put it onto main supply. I could manually put it onto 12-volt maintain, and I can manually put it onto gas. Once you've decided, just press the square again, and it will then move across to the temperature control. Use your arrows again, and then finally press the square, and as you can now see, it's manually on gas at cooling level 3. If there's a problem with the unit in any way, so let me now just put it onto 12-volt maintain for a second. It will continually flash and you'll get a red light here instead of a blue one, letting you know there's a problem. The problem is at the moment the engine isn't running, but auto is the easiest function to have it on. Always make sure that when you're not actually using the fridge for anything, that you are turning it completely off, because it's an automatic fridge. If you leave it turned on and then you're not connected up to the mains, it will automatically light itself on gas and then deplete your gas tank. Washroom just here. There is a switch just here for the extractor fan. Fairford toilet just here. Open to the cassette just on the grey lever here, and then push to flush just on the button underneath here. And then close back up again. If this has been left open and you try to remove the cassette from the outside, it will not come out. So if you do feel resistance, just make sure that nobody's left it open. Level indicator for the cassette just down here, so this will rotate round to red when it needs emptying. The basin slides across so it can then be used. And then we have the clip to then clip it up for a shower. In the overhead locker just here, we have the digital amplifier for the television aerial on the roof. On and off just here. Do make sure it's on before trying to tune a television in, and that the boost is turned up as well. Once this is done, just tune your television in. If I now come down to the bench seat here and remove the cushions, and I now lift up, we have storage beneath here, and we can also see the boiler just there. If I now just remove this bung, you will see the boiler drain valve just here. So this is what is used to drain the boiler down for winterization. When doing this, firstly make sure that the water pump is turned off, and then all you need to do is just twist across like so, and it will begin to drain all the water out of the boiler. I always suggest that if you are fully winterizing the motorhome, that you also go around and open up all the taps as well, because this will release any airlocks in the system and help it drain down much more efficiently. When it comes to refilling the boiler, make sure the taps are closed again like they are at the moment. Fill up the fresh water tank turn on the 12-volt system. Make sure that the drain valve is back in the position it is now. Then turn the water pump on and it will begin to refill the boiler. Let it run for a few minutes and then begin opening the taps. They'll cough and splutter as they force the air out. Once they're running freely on both hot and cold, close, and then the system will fully reprime itself. Underneath the other bench seat is storage. And then this rear bed is nice and simple to make. Just slightly lift up and pull across, and then do the same with the other side, and then let them meet in the middle. And then it's just a matter of dropping the cushions into place, just like so. To make the front bed, you will need all of the infill cushions. You will also need to drop this table down and pull these sections out. To drop the table leg, you just need to push on this button just here, and to unclip the table you just need to push down on both buttons. As you can now see, I've removed the table and I've just pushed the button in and then folded this section here. You can also, if you need to stow the table away, also you can push this one down to make the whole leg go completely flat. You'll see you have these little snap-ons just here. They snap onto this section here because it's in a moment going to drop down like so, and then with these straps being on, it's going to stop any movement of the table coming out at all. Just like this. Then if I then just drop that down and then just push that in slightly, and then see we have the bed base just there. And then if I then just continue to pull these sections both out, I can then begin to drop in the infill cushions. You will see firstly we have the backrest cushion just here, and I've removed this section. You'll see it has this cut out part just here, and that is what this small infill is for. Just pops in there, and then it can then be put into place. Once this is in, we then have these three infills just here. Two are the same width, one is slightly slimmer, and the slightly slimmer one goes into this section just here, and then the other two go side by side just here. I told a little fib just there. The smaller cushion goes in this corner just here, and then the two that are the same size go here and here. We then have this last cushion just here, and this one just places at the back here to avoid you rolling onto any of the plugs or this little catch just here. The passenger seat swivels round just on this red lever just here, move it backwards and forwards on this bar here, and then you can adjust the height level on these two levers just here. It's exactly the same on the driver's seat, with the exception of it being able to swivel.